everything good that Amaziah did, that would be Uzziah's father of chapter 25. And he started out well. That's what Ezra is telling us. Everything good that Amaziah did, his son Uzziah did. Starts out with a bang. He did right in the sight of the Lord, verse 4, according to all his father Amaziah had done. He continued to seek God in the days of Zechariah. That's not that Zechariah, it's another one. By the way, the experts say there's over 30 Zechariahs in the Old Testament. Yeah, I tried. I don't get that many, but there are a lot of of Zechariah verse 5, who had understanding through the vision of God, and as long as he sought the Lord God, God prospered him. That would be the king, not Zechariah. Verse 6, now he went out and warred against the Philistines and broke down the wall of Gath and the wall of Jabneh and the wall of Ashdod. These are all Philistine cities. Philistia is over here, kind of a slice out of Israel along the coast. And against the Arabians who lived in Gurbaal, and the Meunites, whoever they are. Verse 8, the Ammonites also gave tribute to Uzziah, and his fame extended to the border of Egypt, for he became very strong. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, and at the valley gate, at the corner buttress, and fortified them. Now, if you remember his dad, when his dad got proud, remember the thistle and the cedar tree? Well, the cedar tree became the wild beast that stomped on the thistle. And he lost that battle against the northern kingdom. And they took him captive for 15 years. But when the king of Israel while him and his army were at Jerusalem, they tore down 600 feet of the wall of Jerusalem, and here is saying, now his son has rebuilt that wall in verse 9. Verse 10, he built towers in the wilderness and hewed many cisterns, for he had much livestock, both in the lowland and in the plain. He also had plowmen and vine dressers in the hill country and the fertile fields, for he loved the soil. Moreover, verse 11, Uzziah had an army ready for battle, which entered combat by divisions according to their number, the number of their muster, prepared by Jael the scribe and Maaseiah the official, under direction of Hananiah, one of the king's officers. All you're getting is, what you're getting here is order, 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 good order. And one of the things a good king does, he has a well-built, maintained military. So Hananiah, one of the king's officers, verse 12, the total number of the heads of the households of valiant warriors was 2,600. Under their direction was an elite army of 307,500 who could wage war with great power to help the king against the enemy. Moreover, verse 14, Uzziah prepared for all the army shields, spears, helmets, body armor, bows, and sling stones. In Jerusalem, he made engines of war invented by skillful men to be on the towers, on the corners, for the purpose of shooting arrows and great stones. So he's got arrow shooters and catapults up there. Hence his fame spread far, for he was marvelously helped until he was strong. That's about the best resume you can get for a king. That's really as good as you can get, other than David. And that's really what you're seeing there, is a guy who lines the things up like David did. Okay, he's strong, he's famous, and he loves the soil. That's a good thing. Doesn't get better. But there's that faithful word in verse 16. But when he became strong, his heart was so proud that he acted corruptly, and he was unfaithful to the Lord God, for he entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Then Azariah the priest, we've got a lot of Azariahs too, but so anyway, then Azariah the priest entered after him, and with him 80 priests of the Lord, valiant men. This was not a friendly gathering inside the temple when the king took incense into the temple. Does that remind you of another time that happened? It's Aaron's two boys, Nadab and Abihu, did the same thing on the grand opening day of the tabernacle, and God killed them on the spot. So now we've got a king that's just done the same thing. And not just the high priest comes in. He's got 80 valiant men. These guys are armed against the king. This is a serious deal right here. Verse 18, they opposed Uzziah the king and said to him, It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for one of the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Get out of the sanctuary, for you have been unfaithful and will have no honor from the Lord God. Verse 19, but Uzziah, with a censer in his hand, that's the thing that has the burning incense in it that they're going to put on the altar, or the burning coals, with a censer in his hand for burning incense, because incense is oil mixed with good stuff. He was enraged, it says. And while he was enraged with the priest, the leprosy broke out on his forehead before the priest in the house of the Lord beside the altar of incense. Azariah, the chief priest, and all the priests looked at him, and behold, he was leprous on his forehead, and they hurried him out of there. And he himself also hastened to get out, because the Lord had smitten him. Verse 21, King Uzziah was a leper until the day of his death, and he lived in a separate house, being a leper, for he was cut off from the house of the Lord. Because why? He was unclean, and he can't get clean. And Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the, verse 22, now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, from first to last, the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amoz, has written. So Uzziah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the field of the grave, which belonged to the kings, for they said, he is a leper. In other words, he's buried in the same area, but he's not with the rest of them. And Jotham, his son, became king in his place. So, again, the greatest resume to begin with and the greatest fall to end with. You can't get worse than being a leper in Israel. If you're the king, that is saying something about God's justice, because God's justice is always eye for eye. The punishment always fits the crime. And this is an awful punishment. And what he did was awful. So, back to the beginning of the chapter, there's some things maybe I can straighten out and maybe I can't. Verse 1, and all the people took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the place of his father, Amaziah. Well, it sounds like Amaziah is dead there to me, but he's not. Now, let's continue describing Uzziah, the new king. He built Eloth and restored it to Judah after the king slept with his fathers. Here again, Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jechiliah of Jerusalem. He did right in the sight of the Lord according to all that his father Amaziah had done. He continued to seek God in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding through the vision of God. And as long as he Amaziah, sought the Lord, God prospered him. Now, okay, so the common way of reading that would be that at the death of Amaziah, Uzziah, his son, is 16 years old, and he reigns for 52 years in Jerusalem. So I wrote the dates that experts agree on for the years of Amaziah. Uzziah's dad, he began his reign in 796, and he died in 767, and his reign was 29 years. So, his son Uzziah becomes king in 767. He dies in 740 after 27 years of reign, but I know I read it said he reigned 52 years. Got 25 years missing here. Yeah. There's only one way to explain that, and to explain verses 1 through when he was 16 years old. He was 16 years old, this guy, in 792, 4 years after his dad became king. 4 years after that, when he was 16 years old, his dad makes him the co-regent. And it says the people made him king. That means the elders of Jerusalem, his staff, his aides, whatnot, they were all in on this. But it was the king himself who initiated this. And 4 years after he becomes king, he makes his 16-year-old son co-regent. So he becomes co-regent, which is, he is officially king, but he's not the king. He's the crown prince. But he is counted as king. That's verse 1 and 2. By the way, when he's 16 years old, and his total reign in those first verses we read, the 52 years, go down here to 740. I mean, there's your 52 years. So, just okay, now you know everything. Then you got another problem on your list. If you don't have it, I can just tell you that Uzziah's son, Uzziah dies in 740, but on the list it says that Jotham, who by the way is a good king, and he's got the shortest amount of space in Chronicles. Let's see, on the list it says he becomes king in 748. That's 8 years before his dad dies. So you've got another co-regency going on there. That 8 years before our current king Uzziah dies, he makes his son co-regent. And why they've got it listed like that, I don't know. But anyway, if you ever come across that, and people say, you see that errors in the Bible. No, it's not an error. I wish Ezra and those other guys would explain things a little bit better, but they don't have to their crowd. So anyway, okay, there's that part. There's that much done. Now back in let's see, verse 3. Uzziah was 16 years old, 52 years old. Mother's name, and verse 4. He did right in the sight of the Lord according to all his father Amaziah had done. That's great. His father Amaziah didn't end up good, but he did do some good things. That's what he's saying here. And verse 5, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, the yellow flag goes out here. He continued to seek God in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding through the vision of God. And as long as he, the king, Uzziah, sought the Lord, God prospered him. Does anybody else see the yellow flag go up there? That's how it ended, and you really don't expect to see those words in the last line there, as long as he sought the Lord. Whoa, wait a minute here. We've got a guy that's about to get the best resume ever seen of these kings. What are you talking? You mean he's going to go bad like his father and his father, and his father. Well, sad but true. But the first part of verse 5 is really the telltale, or the telltale. Do you see it? Verse 5, the very first line. Well, something's going to happen to Zechariah. But the point is, he's about to go bad. We know that from the end of the sentence. As long as he sought God, as long as he sought God, what does he have? Who does he have to help him seek God? His name's right there, Zechariah. That's a good priest name. Maybe he's a priest. I don't know. Maybe he's a prophet. But whoever he is the guy that leads the new king in the way he should go before God. Well, here's the point. We've seen this before. We saw this in chapter 24 and verse 2. This is his grandfather Joash, boy king. Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. Do you see something going on here? Turn to Exodus chapter 32. Okay, yeah, right at the beginning. Okay, you may not recognize it right off, but I know you know the story of the golden calves. Moses has been up on the mountain for 40 days. I think this is his second trip. He makes 3 altogether. But whichever it is, he's been up on the mountain, and the people are below the mountain. Chapter 32, verse 1. Now when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people assembled about Aaron and said to him, "Come and make us a god who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." You see anything going on between here and those 2 kings? Let's go to another one in Joshua chapter 2. Let's see, Joshua. Let's see. No, Judges. I'm sorry. Judges chapter 2. Next book. Okay. Now, after chapter 1 and the first 5 verses of chapter 2, the author is going to do a flashback here. When Joshua had dismissed the people, the sons of Israel went each to his inheritance to possess the land. The people served the Lord all the days of Joshua. Are you connecting that to Kings? to Chronicles and to even Exodus 32. Then the people served the Lord, verse 7, all the days of Joshua, and all the elders who survived Joshua, who had seen all the great work of the Lord which he had done for Israel. Then Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. They buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Verse 10, all that generation also gathered to their fathers, and arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord, nor yet the work which he had done for them. So, what happens here? Joshua dies for one thing, and then the generation that entered the land and fought for the land, now they've died off. And then verse 11 of Joshua 2. Then the sons of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. Okay, what happened in Exodus 32 when they thought Moses is gone forever? We have to have gods to worship. Aaron, make us some. Okay. Yeah, I'll do it. 40 years later, or let's see, about 40 plus 25, 65, 70 years later, Joshua dies. And then what happens to the new generation? In Kings, we've got two kings that said they did what was right in the sight of the Lord as long as so-and-so lived. And then you watch what happens after so-and-so dies. Here's the point. It's a dangerous thing to build your believing life around a man. Do you see what I'm talking about here? Years ago, I lived in town, and a next door neighbor, her name was Shirley. Her husband's name was Dwight, and we were good friends. Kind of. But anyway, her and I were talking one day, and she was telling me how her dad used to be a Baptist preacher, pastor, and that she didn't go to church anymore, but she listened to Billy Graham, and she said, and I quote, "Billy Graham's my man." Here's the point with her, with Uzziah, with his father Amaziah, or his grandfather Joash, with the people of Israel after Joshua dies, and the people of Israel in Moses' day when they think he's gone. Who is their relationship with God built around? Do you see what I mean? It's not built around God. God's a word to them. Well, it must be more than that. They saw things. Oh, they did. They also rejected things. But their whole relationship to Yahweh is built around a man. Moses, Joshua, Zechariah the priest. And then another Zechariah. Anyway, but when they die, in every case I listed, and I didn't make any kind of real search for this. In every case, they jump right into the mud after their relationship with Yahweh is gone. Right in. That's a warning for you guys. What have I got in front of my face? I got a mirror here. Yeah, I've been guilty of that. Was Moses and Joshua and Zechariah, were they good guys? They were great guys. They were leaders, and they were meant for the people to follow. They were meant to lead the people, but they were not ever meant to be their relationship to God. So, yes. Next week. Next week. Actually, we could go right there now, because when Uzziah dies, Isaiah, you know, you can argue who the greatest prophet is all you want. But Isaiah doesn't bow to anybody. He's alive. In fact, on your handy dandy there, you'll even see the names of the prophets. It's not just Isaiah. Let's see, in Isaiah chapter 6, he sees the throne of God in the year that Uzziah died, 740. But he's been a prophet before that. I don't know how long, but he's a prophet for like 50 or 60 years, maybe more, because he goes through 4 kings. The last one is the one that tradition says he stuffed him in a hollow log and sawed him in half. His name's Manasseh. And this guy is the son of arguably the greatest king of this age of king, Hezekiah. See, when you try to sew things together there, all you're going to do is rip it and make holes. But here again, the point is, the people of Ezra's day, which is way down the road. I mean, we're still up at 770 or something like that. Ezra's almost 300 years later. But the people, again, we don't have a king. Where's our kings? And why are you dragging us through the mud, the history of the kings? Why are you doing that? Because you've got a promise from God. He gave it to David. There is a king coming, and one of the things we're going to look at in Isaiah next week is that king that's coming. Because if there's one central theme of Isaiah, I'm sure I could get an argument out of this. It is the king is coming. The Messiah. He's coming. So anyway, okay, where was I before I got lost out in the wilderness? No, thank you. Let me see if I can swerve this rig back. Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, that was the biggest point I wanted to make, because it struck me with 2 of these kings that they both had mentors, great mentors. But after those mentors died, they went off. They went off. Now, okay, we talked about, let's see, okay, where am I? 26. All right. Let's go through this again, verse 6. Any comments or questions so far? Okay. Now he went out and warred against the Philistines and broke down the wall of Gath and the wall of Jabneh and the wall of Ashdod. These are three capital cities. There's two others of Philistia. But he's doing a good thing here. Verse 7, God helped him against the Philistines and against the Arabians. Now he's getting it from the south and the east. Arabians who lived down there, next door neighbors of Edom, Esau, down there, and the Meunites. I don't know who those guys are. Verse 8, the Ammonites, over here, the Ammonites also gave tribute to Uzziah, and his fame extended to the border of Egypt, for he became very strong. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate and at the valley gate, and those are just entrance gates into Jerusalem. They're the gates in the walls. You can look those up and see where they're at. In the corner buttress and fortified them. Verse 10. He built towers in the wilderness and hewed many cisterns, for he had much livestock, both in the lowland and in the plain. He also had plowmen and vine dressers in the hill country and the fertile fields, for he loved the soil. Moreover, Uzziah had an army ready for battle, which entered combat by divisions, and so on and so on. It goes. And the very last thing in verse 15, hence his fame spread afar, for he was marvelously helped until he was strong. He was helped by God until he had achieved all this stuff. He's got enemies that are paying him tribute. He's defeated enemies to the east, to the south, and to the west, the Philistines. He's done all this stuff. He's a farmer, for crying out loud. How could you not like the guy? He's got lots of livestock, but he's got a big army, and he's built fortresses out there that unfortunately probably a lot of them were torn down by the king of Israel, who defeated his dad. Now, right now he's strong. But back in chapter 25, his dad started out strong. And then he defeated Edom, the Edomites. And after that, his heart became proud. There's the other undoing of these kings, is pride. if you've got a king who is an arrogant boaster, vote for somebody else next time. So after Amaziah, Uzziah's dad, Amaziah, in chapter 25, in verse 17, he gets a notion that he's going to attack Israel, the northern kingdom, and take them out. And that's what he does in verse 17. Then Amaziah, king of Judah, took counsel. There's another thing. The old bad company corrupts good morals. He took counsel and sent to Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, the king of Israel. Okay, we've got the king of Judah, Amaziah, and he's sending a message to the current king of Israel, Jehoahaz. Okay, so he sends him this message. That says, come, let us face each other. Let's fight. I'm on a roll. I just took out Edom to the south. I've got you to the north. Let's fight. Verse 18. Joash, okay, he's the king of Israel now, not Joash of Judah, the boy king. This is Joash of Israel. Joash, the king of Israel, sent to Amaziah, king of Judah, saying, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you the parable of the thorn bush. The thorn bush, which was in Lebanon, sent to the cedar, which was in Lebanon, saying, give me your daughter to my son in marriage. But there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon and trampled the thorn bush. Okay, so Joash, the current king of Israel, gets the message from Uzziah's dad, Amaziah, hey, let's fight. And the king of Israel is the one that shows some wisdom here. Also some arrogance, but he says, let me tell you a story here. There's a thorn bush down at the bottom of the Lebanese mountains. You know what thorn bushes? Thorn bushes are kind of in the way. They're pesky. They grab a hold of your pants and you have to unhook yourself and whatnot. Nobody likes a thorn bush. So this thorn bush hollers up on these Lebanese mountains, hollers up at this huge cedar tree. And he says to the huge cedar tree, I want your daughter for my son in marriage. In other words, I want us to make a one-on-one pact. We'll be even. We'll be even. But remember, one's a thistle and one's a cedar tree, and they're not even. So again, I don't think this is part of the parable. I don't think it's part of the story of what's going on. Joash is just, let me tell you a story about a big boast from a little guy to a big guy who wants to make a deal with him. And he knows that the big guy is never going to make that deal with a little guy. So there's going to be war. That's what's going on. He says, here's what's going to happen at that fight. The cedar tree is going to become a wild beast that's going to come step on the thistle. And when a wild beast like a Lebanese bear or a lion or whatever it is, an oxen maybe, when they step on a thistle, that thistle's done. So that's what Joash is telling Uzziah, our current king, his dad. In other words, why don't you just go home? Go home, little thistle, before I step on you. But verse 20 says, Amaziah wouldn't listen. Thistles don't listen to cedar trees? No. Not if they think they're a cedar tree, but they're not cedar trees. A boaster is never what he says he is. So anyway, that turned out into a battle that Israel won, and they defeated Jerusalem. And not only that, they took Amaziah as a hostage exile to Samaria for 15 years. So during that exile, his son Uzziah is like de facto king of Judah. All right? In verse 25 of chapter 25, and Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived 15 years after the death of Joash. Joash, the king, the current king of the northern kingdom of Israel, lives 15 years and dies, and all that time, he's got Amaziah, the king of Judah, as his guest. And then after he dies, it's what they do. Amaziah set free. And again, his son, Uzziah, has been, the de facto king, not just the crown prince. He's been king for 15 years. When he was crown prince, 9 years before that. So you got all this, right? Anyway, the point is that Uzziah, here in chapter 26, saw a lot of what his dad did. A lot. He may have been there when the threat was made to the king of Judah, or the king of Israel, and heard that parable himself. He may have been. But when dad dies, he becomes sole king, not a prince regent anymore. And starting in verse 6, and it seems to be because in verse 5 there is some kind of a prophet, priest named Zechariah. He is the guy bringing him along. And he does a good job. Moses did a good job. Joshua did a good job. His grandfather Joash had actually the uncle that kidnapped him when he was a baby. He raised him up in the way he should go. Good guys, all of them. But the thing was, in every case, the people involved showed that their relationship to Yahweh really didn't exist unless there was a man to hang on to their legs. And that's a huge. I can't. I've seen this happen. You know, you see it. You see it happen with pastors. What happens when a pastor leaves? Half the church leaves. Why? Who's their relationship with? That's what happens. That's what can happen. So anyway, okay. Back to verse 16. There's that word, but. And when he became strong, people want more than anything. How many times have I heard this, maybe even said it myself, but I was never much for making plans or anything like that. But I know people that say, when I get to this point, I'll be set up. When I get here, it's probably a dollar number. When I get there, I'm set up. And you may be referring to retirement or just your own personal place that you want to be. Your, what do they call it? That's my goal. See, in America, even in the church, if you're not goal-oriented, well, you're some kind of a misfit. And I was never goal-oriented. I just kind of lived, still do. But I'm not patting myself on the back. At a certain point, you do need to have your eyes fixed on something. That for a Christian, that'd be Jesus Christ. That's what I see in Uzziah. He got to a point. He's got fields, he's got herds, he's got the strong army that's beat everybody around him. What do I do now? Okay, well, here's what I'll do. Since I'm so big and powerful, and since my relationship to God is based on a man named Zechariah. Now, I don't think it said that Zechariah died, but the fact is, that's where his relationship to God is through Zechariah. But God made him strong when he was doing right. But when he became strong, his heart was so proud. Now, that's what my version says. It doesn't just say proud. It says so proud, lifted up. His heart was so lifted up that he acted corruptly, and he was unfaithful to the Lord his God, for he entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Okay, now we've kind of hit on this with Solomon, about, and the whole book of Leviticus is dedicated to one thing, and that's the priesthood. The priesthood is most important in God's government is the priesthood. And you don't mess with the priesthood, and you don't mess with the priest's duties if you're not a priest. And here we find out it doesn't matter if you're the king. And boy, the action that these priests took against him tell me a lot. So anyway, so he enters the temple. Then in verse 18, it says that the priests got together and they opposed Uzziah the king and said to him, "It is not for you to burn incense to the Lord, Uzziah. It's only for us. It's only for the sons of Aaron," there in verse 18. and they tell him, they're toward the end of verse 18, get out. Get. But before he could get out, something happens to him. And God says, yes, before you leave, I'm gonna judge you. And leprosy breaks out on his forehead. Now, leprosy doesn't stay in one place. And he's going to live a while after this. He's going to have an awful life. And this is a son of David. This is a king. He is going to die in shame and dishonor. And God is the one who's going to kill him. If you don't like that about God, then I don't know what to tell you. Because we already talked about two guys that had tried this very thing before. Nadab and Abihu brought strange fire into the tabernacle on opening day, and boom, they got it. That was it. Uzziah tries it, and boom, he gets it. But he doesn't get off easy with just death. He gets off with not just a debilitating disease. This is a disease that makes him unclean. He can't see anybody. He can't talk. Nobody's going to come visit him. They're going to come put food at his door. That's it. He can't go to the temple anymore. And he is going to die like that. So next week we'll look at Isaiah chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, we'll kind of skim through the first 6 chapters to see, okay, what was going on before Uzziah died? And that's really the heartbreaker. So anyway, let's finish. We got 1 minute. I'll get done on time today because I'm just going to read about who takes over. A good king, good king, good king. And he only gets a paragraph. His name is Jotham, chapter 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jerushah, the daughter of Zadok. And he did right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Uzziah did. And Uzziah did do good things. Remember that. So whatever he did good, his son took after him that way. But there's one thing that he doesn't do. He doesn't take after his dad in the other way. Verse 2, he did right in the sight of the Lord according to all that his father Uzziah had done. However, but, I don't know if I want to hear this or not. But this is a good thing. It says, however, he did not enter the temple of the Lord. That's a good thing because that's what got his dad in trouble. Remember that? But the people continued acting corruptly. Now we're going to skim through the first 6 chapters of Isaiah next week, and we're going to see, boy, if you've never read them, I'd suggest that you do, especially chapter 1, and see what's going on now. What's going on? Well, Isaiah can tell you what's going on. In verse 3 of chapter 27 of 2nd Chronicles, when the people acted corruptly. Now, what does that mean? You get an earful in Isaiah chapter 1. So, moreover, he built extensively the wall of Ophel. Moreover, he built cities in the hill country of Judah and built fortresses and towers and wooded hills. He fought also with the king of the Ammonites and prevailed over them, that the Ammonites gave him, I thought his dad beat him and they were paying him money. Funny how things happen, huh? Yeah, people get beat, they come back and get strong, and now they're thistles at the bottom of Mount Lebanon looking to take on the great cedar tree. But this time, Jotham, the king of Judah, he's the cedar tree, and he is the wild beast that steps on the Ammonites who have regathered themselves and want to fight. So verse 5, he fought the king of the Ammonites and prevailed over them, that the Ammonites gave him during that year. Wow. Here again, another one getting money from an enemy. 100 talents of silver, 10,000 cores of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. The Ammonites also paid him this amount the second and then in the third year. So Jotham became mighty because he ordered his ways before the Lord. That's all you need to know about Jotham. Does it say anything about him hanging on to the coattails of a prophet or a priest? He ordered his ways before the Lord his God. This is a personal relationship. The people back in Exodus 32, the people in Judges chapter 2, 2 Kings, they have no real personal relationship with God by grace through faith, by repentance. They don't have that. But they got a man. Got a man. Jotham's got a God. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, even all his wars and his acts, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And he was 25 years old when he became king and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Ahaz, his son, became king in his place. So, look at Ahaz next week, and Ahaz figures in about as big as you can get into Bible prophecy, because Ahaz is the one that hears Isaiah say, Isaiah 7:14, and a virgin will be with child. Ahaz, the next king coming up, he hears that from Isaiah himself. But anyway, that's another thing. All right, you're dismissed.